Welcome to the learning series of HEFAgriHUB. In this video, you will learn how to create a new entry for a resource in the catalog HEFAgriHUB. To register a new resource entry into the catalog, you need to be logged in with proper access rights. If you do not have an account yet, or if you want information about access rights, please first see the Create Your Account at HEFAgriHUB video. You should start by logging in with your username and password. After logging in, the first page you see is your overview dashboard. In this setting, you have 4 sections: New Feeds, My Datasets, My Organizations, and My Groups. New Feeds is a list of all actions and activities arranged in the order of their occurrence. My Datasets is a list of all the resources that you have created or have edit access to, including private and public resource entries. Then we have My Organizations, which shows a list of all organizations that you are a member of. Keep in mind that you can be a member of multiple organizations. And finally, My Groups, which is a list of all groups you can add or remove from your entry. By default, you are granted full permission for adding groups to your resource in the catalog. If you are not familiar with groups, please first watch the HEFAgriHUB demo video, so as to understand the meaning of different terms used in this video while creating an entry. Okay, now let's add a new dataset, or in other words, a new resource. There are a number of places where you can find the Add Dataset button. For example, in your dashboard under the tab My Dataset, or on the page of your organization where all the resources provided by your organization are listed, or directly on the dataset page of HEFAgriHUB where all existing resources from all organizations are listed. Clicking on the Add Dataset button in any of these pages will take you to the same page, which contains the metadata template. Here is the metadata template. You should insert the information about your resource here. On top of the template, you see 2 steps for successfully creating your new resource entry. In general, the term metadata means information about data. It covers all information about a resource, such as its owner, its general description, and its type. Metadata holds essential information about a resource and provides an efficient way of finding it. There are several specific metadata models for different use cases. Every time a user wants to register an entry into the HEFAgriHUB, she or he has to fill in the metadata attributes. In HEFAgriHUB, the metadata is provided on 2 levels, and you need to enter the information in 2 steps. The first step is Create Dataset, where you should provide general information about the resource, such as the organization that owns it, the author, relevant tags, and if available, the temporal range or spatial extent, and so on. After finishing the first stage, a draft of your resource entry is created. You will then have to go to the second stage, which is Add Data. Filling in this stage is optional. Here you can add some information to the metadata. For example, you can add the collected measurements as a CSV file, or you can add a report in Word or PDF format. You can add multiple resources here, or you can simply finish the process without adding any data. Now let's create a real resource entry and see how the whole process works. In this example, I would like to create a new entry for a project I did some years ago. I need to fill in the attributes related to my resource. I give a title for my entry and the catalog automatically creates the URL. It converts my title into lowercase letters and replaces all spaces with a dash to make a unique ID. This ID is concatenated into the catalog URL, and a unique URL to my resource is created. If this particular ID was already registered, when I submit the entry, I will get an error informing me that I should manually change the ID. Please note that red asterisk signs indicate compulsory attributes. If you do not provide information for these, you will receive an error message upon submitting the metadata form. I will provide a short and concise description for this entry. You can also include an image. At the time of creating this video, there are 2 possibilities for including images. using Markdown formatting or using HTML. This might change in the future. I simply add my image using Markdown. Next is tags. This is a list of keywords that can describe the entry. This list is optional and a user can add multiple tags or none at all. However, the best practice is to choose a modest number of tags that really describe the resource. According to the metadata schema type, you may see other possibilities, such as a drop-down list, which provides some frequently used or use case specific tags, and you can simply use tags from those libraries. At the time of recording this video, the current metadata schema doesn't provide a drop-down list for tags. The next attribute is license, which regulates in which way the resource can be used. Before using a license, make sure you are familiar with licenses and their limitations. If no license applies to your resource, you should not check this attribute. However, it is recommended that you choose a proper license so that it is clear who may use this data and under which conditions. By default, if you are a member of only one organization, the next attribute is automatically filled and cannot be changed. But if you are a member of multiple organizations, you should choose the corresponding organization here. For the section Author, you should provide the author of the resource, who might be somebody other than you. In the backend, your name or account will automatically be recorded as the creator of this resource in the catalog, but that is different from the author. The maintainer is responsible for the long-term maintenance of the resource. The maintainer can be a person, an organization, or a department. This section is optional. However, in general, filling in the optional attributes increases the searchability and reliability of your information and resource entry. You can set the visibility of the metadata of your resource to either public so that everyone can see it, or to private so that only members of your organization can see it. The purpose for this catalog is to provide general information about resources and make them available to those who have access to the catalog. So we suggest using public visibility. However, the default is set to private in order to avoid any accidental privacy breach. The next section is group, which is very important and is specific to our catalog. As you may know from the demo video on the structure of our catalog, we have introduced 3 groups in HEFAgriHUB, each specifying a unique characteristic for resource entries. The obligatory group is the main category with 9 types. Each resource entry should have at least one type from the main category. The second group is the research station. If your resource is collected or produced in any of the TUM research stations, you should add that research station or stations. The third group is research topic, including topics such as ecology, plant sciences, and so on. In our example, the resource is a project. The relevant topic for this resource is technology, and the location is the research station Durnast. Language and version are optional attributes. I select English as the language. However, the version is not relevant to my entry, so I leave it empty. There are 2 more optional attributes which play critical roles for improving the searchability of your resource. One of them is data range, where you can provide a temporal range, for example for the collection period of a data set, availability of a functional device, or the period of a project. In case the start date or the end date is not available, you can simply leave it out. The other interesting optional attribute is the spatial extent attribute. Here you can define the location your resource is positioned at or collected from. You can have a simple bounding box, a complex geometrical boundary, or a mixture of multiple locations. You have the possibility to draw the spatial boundaries using a spatial widget, choose from already defined boundaries, or simply copy and paste your location in GeoJSON format into this box. You also have a set of empty available custom fields in case you would like to add more attributes to the metadata that you find necessary for better describing your resource entry. After you complete this part, you can click on the button Next, Add Data. By clicking on this button, you actually create a draft of your entry, but it is not yet visible through the user interface of the catalog. The state of the entry is defined as draft in the database. In order to change the state from draft to active and to make it visible in the user interface, you can either use the command line and do this through the catalog API using your API key, or you can finish the creation of your entry by continuing to the next step. The next step is Add Data. As was already mentioned, you can simply skip this step by clicking on the button Finish, which makes your resource entry visible to those who have access to the specific resource entry. But you might want to add some data. In my example, I would like to add a shapefile, which shows the locations of all installed sensors and some relevant information. To add data here, you have two possibilities. You can add a file either by providing a link to another storage place or cloud, such as your Sync and Share or a link to the entry in MediaToom, or you can upload your file directly to the HEFAgriHUB server. If you want to upload your file, please make sure that your file is less than 150 megabytes, otherwise it cannot be uploaded. In this example, we want to upload a shapefile. It is possible to simply upload the shapefile alone, but if you would like to add a preview or let others work with your shapefile, you should also provide all the additional files that go with it, such as the DBF or PRJ files. To do so, you need to zip your shapefile together with all the other files, and then either provide the zip file through a link or upload it into the HEFAgriHUB. For each data that you add, you should provide a name. To clarify the content of the data, it is recommended to provide a very short description. However, this is not compulsory. For all files that have a file format at the end of the file, the catalog will automatically recognize the format. But for well less known formats and those files where the format is not included, for example when a link to the file is given, the format is simplified as data. The best practice is to make sure that the chosen format is correct, so it is better to select it manually in this part if it is not. Another important aspect here is the access restriction for the individual added data. Please note this is different from the visibility of the metadata. If a user has no access to the metadata of the entry, there will be no access to the added data either. The access rights to the added data specified here is only relevant when there is access to the resource metadata. In this part, you can define who has the right to see or download this specific data. At the time of recording this video, we have 4 access levels. Public, which means visible to all. Registered users, which makes the data visible only to users with valid user accounts. Same organization's members, which makes it visible to members of specified organizations. And finally, allowed users only, where you can type the name of individual users. You see here that it makes sense to choose your real name as your username, so that later on it is easier to look it up. At the end, there is a field in which you can provide some additional information about the data. For example, if you provide an Excel file where each column is named with an abbreviation, you can explain what each column name means. Once you are finished with this, if you wish to add additional data, you should press the Save and Add Another button and repeat the process. If not, you can press Finish. We are almost done with the important parts of creating a new resource entry. If you click on Finish, you will be taken to your final resource page where you can see the entry in the catalog. You will always have the possibility to edit and update this entry. We are technically done with registering our resource entry, but I would like to draw your attention to 2 additional functions that HEFAgriHUB offers. The first is the preview option for each data. Let me go back to my shapefile. Here I just have the possibility to download the zip file, and there is a message saying there are no views created for this resource yet. In the HEFAgriHUB, you can add a preview to your data after creating it. The The preview option is applicable for certain data formats. At the time of this recording, the preview covers the following file types: PDFs, HTML or websites, shapefiles, GeoJSON files, KML files, webmap services, web feature services, CSV or Excel files, and images. For my shapefile, I would like to add a preview. First, I need to go to the edit mode of my resource. I click on the button Manage, and then I go to Resources. I now choose the data I would like to add a preview to, and then move to the tab Views. Considering the format of the data, Catalog will remove some of the view options that are irrelevant. Here I choose Shapefile. Again, you need to provide a title and, if you want to, a short description. Before you add the view, you can preview it and see if everything looks okay. Looks nice. I add the view. Now if I click on View Resource, we see an additional embedded window where we can preview our shapefile. One more hint. For some file types, such as images or PDFs, the catalog will automatically create the preview when adding the data. So it is always a good idea to check your metadata and the added data to make sure everything looks okay. The second function that HEFAgriHUB offers is relationships. You might have noticed that on the step Add Data at the bottom of the page, there was another button for creating relationships. This is where you can establish some links between your resource entry and other existing resource entries in the catalog. To do so, you can either click on Add Relationship, or after finishing the process of creating the entry, you can edit your resource and add new relationships. Either way, you will land on the same page. Here you should first search for the related datasets. This can be through keywords, or in case you know the name of the relevant dataset, by providing the complete title. If you are interested, you can see the demo video where we explain different types of relationships. When you search for a keyword, you will receive a list of your search results. You have the possibility to check if the datasets you have found are really related to your resource by opening them in, for example, a new tab in your browser. When you are sure which resource entry is related to your resource, you can go to the corresponding relationship type section and add that specific resource as a related dataset. You always have the possibility to remove unwanted relationships by clicking on the Remove button in front of each resource entry under the corresponding relationship type. You can now finish this step or update it, and then go to the Relationship tab to see the added relationships. If you face any problems, you can always contact the system admin through the contact section of the HEFAgriHUB. You will receive a response as soon as possible.